Hello and welcome to the February 2016 edition of From the Desk of. I am Tim Moody. I'm the Public Information Officer with the Randolph County School System. Each month we meet with our superintendent, Dr. Gainey, and thank you to Randolph Communications for giving us the opportunity to do this each month and share with you, our community, all the great things that are going on in the Randolph County School System. And Dr. Gainey, in just a few weeks, we will have the Advanced Ed Accreditation team here for their official visit. And in previous interviews, we've talked a little bit about accreditation and what that means. A lot of hard work, a lot of preparation over the past several months to prepare for this visit. And one thing I want to talk about today is, as we've moved forward and prepared for this presentation, we've sort of uncovered some themes, some motivators or core values for our school system. I want to spend some time talking about those: trust and transparency, visibility, high standards, fiscal accountability, and relationships. That sort of guide us each day, and I know they guide you. If we can, let's start with trust and transparency, and just what are some examples of that, and really what does that mean for our school system?
Well, Tim, trust and transparency are pretty big with me, and one of the things I've tried to focus on with the school system coming in the door is you move to a new area and trying to, as our school system works to get better, you've got to gain the trust of your community, of your staff, and we've worked hard at that to be very open and transparent about what's been going on and so with that we've had meetings with different stakeholder groups, shared a lot of information with principals and different staff groups about budget and different, whether it be student assignment procedures we're putting in place or policies we were putting in place, just trying to kind of open the doors and let people see what's going on here. And knowing that when you do that, there may be some things that are identified as possible negatives that you have to work through. It's not always going to be positive, but I've always believed in leadership that if you're willing to do that and open the doors and be transparent, which is probably, if I weighed the trust and transparency, I don't think you can get trust until you've engaged in transparency and promoted that. So that's been a big combo as we've moved through the first 2.5 years here, is trying to get the larger community to trust us and what we're doing and trying to do for kids. And same token, trying to get our staff and our students to trust us. The students have to trust that we have their best interests at heart.
Okay. So then the second one of these themes on our list, and I suppose this ties to the first one you just talked about, would be visibility. And I know that obviously the more visible that we are allows us to create that trust and transparency. So how do we do that?
Well, the visibility piece is we've concentrated a great deal on being out in schools from the leadership at the central office. We've worked with our principals about being in classrooms 2 hours a day. Obviously, some days it's easier to do for principals than others. But again, if you're out there and the public has access to you, or the parents have access to you, or the children can ask you questions and get to their principals and administrators, I just believe that folds right into that trust and transparency piece. And knowing when you're out there and trying to be visible to the public and to the community members, you've got to know that is going to result sometimes in maybe not the most positive conversation. But what I've found with most people is that when you walk away from even a negative conversation, they appreciate your willingness to engage. And not say, well, we're only going to talk about this in a formal setting. If you want to talk, come back at this time and we'll meet. No, sometimes it's no better time than the present to talk to people and interact with them. And so the visibility, I want us to be a major factor in this community. The community deserves us to take on that role. We are the largest employer in this community, and the community does a lot to support us, and we have a responsibility to take on that role. And so very, very careful that try to be involved in community groups, community boards. Several members of our leadership team and central service team are on community boards, and people ask us to come talk about the school system. Well, we're going to go talk, and we're going to be visible in these groups.
And staying on visibility for just a moment, and of course I think you touched on this, are the school visits. And I know as timing would have it, you had some school visits this morning, including a leadership reads session that our leaders do at the different schools. Can you just tell us about your experiences from this morning?
Well, today's one of those days that that's what I miss about being a principal. I miss being in the schools. I love being a principal. I love being a superintendent. And today's just one of those days. It's like, to me, is the best day a superintendent can have. This morning I was able to start my morning in 2 classrooms at Farmer Elementary and read to a 5th grade class and then a 1st grade class, and then spent some time at URA Middle School on a school visit and interacted with principal there and staff members and saw classrooms in action. And so Jeff Moss, like I say, was with him for a while, and then I left there and went over to Southwestern Randolph Middle and spent some time with Michael Kreider, the principal there. Same thing. Interacted with kids, interacted with staff. I just think that's paramount. You've got to be interested in what they're doing. It's not I'm over here and they're over there. That's not that. The trust is never going to happen. And I say trust because I'm not a decider of when people trust the leadership of the school system, and I don't make that decision. And trust has to be earned. And by our leadership at central office and our leadership as principals, we have to earn it along the way, whether we're earning the community's trust or earning the school staff's trust or what it might be. Another thing we've tried to do in this whole mix is we've got 2 groups that I'm very excited about. We have a Randolph Teacher Leaders Group, 1 teacher from every school. They come in, we meet once every other month with them. We've been doing that since the spring of 2014. And the in-between months, we have a group called Ambassadors for Education, and they are a parent group, 1 parent from every school. And I've been really excited to gain feedback from them about their perceptions of things going on in the school system, good or bad, because there's no way we're going to keep getting better if we don't take the good with the bad. You can't just operate on, well, I'm only listening for the good. I don't want to go look for bad, but if there's something out there not going right, we need to know it to see if it's something that we can fix. Is it something we can fix? Is it something we can do differently? So those 3 things kind of fuse together. But yes, back to your original thing, today is one of those days where it's 1 o'clock, and I don't know what happened to my day, but it was one exciting morning between reading in classrooms and visiting 2 other schools. You're talking about, I've said all along since I've been here, if I can't be our biggest cheerleader, then something's not right. And if there are 3 better schools in the state of North Carolina than Farmer Elementary, URA Middle, and Southwestern Middle, I want to see them. And I think we have 28 other schools that go right in that mix. So I'm just very excited about what I saw this morning and continue to see every day in these schools.
Okay, then staying in our list of you might call our core values, or certainly the things that motivate us each day. We've talked about trust and transparency. We've talked about visibility. We've also got high standards. So just what does that mean to you, and how does that play out in our school district?
Well, one of the things I think about with high standards is there's no substitute for doing things right or doing things the right way. And we have high standards in that we academically, the expectation is that people are collaboratively planning. We have pacing guides where the expectation is the entire curriculum in a particular subject area or grade level content area is being covered across the year. So we have plenty of academic standards. We're watching, doing formative assessments throughout the year, seeing the progress of children, monitoring their reading progress. Then you get into the other side of the house, the business side of the house. We operate with high standards. One of the things I want this board to always feel comfortable is when we bring them things, we're not only bringing them initiatives, we're going to try to show them, okay, we're going to go in this direction, and this is how we're going to pay for this. To me, that's the only fair way to work with a board. We've tried to be very high standard in working with our commissioners, our legislators. We're not just going to throw everything on the floor and say, we got to have all this. Let's talk about things in a way that we can all be successful. So our business practices, we have standards of how we go about purchasing and acquiring supplies and services. And then one of the things that really I've had a lot of fun with in the last year is we are doing a complete review of our board policy manual with the North Carolina School Boards Association, and want to point out Christine Sheaf has been the attorney there that I've been working closely with, as well as Elizabeth Troutman with our attorney, our board attorney's office, and that has been a lot of fun, and going through that. And then we've turned it And it's not just stopped there with the board and leadership team working with the board. We've taken every group of policies that we have reviewed and revised. We've taken them in sections and gone to the next principal meeting with it, the next assistant principal meeting with it, and the next central service administrator meeting. And we've gone through those. And what I keep telling staff is, we're not asking them to memorize these board policies. We want them to know that there are the different topics that are addressed by board policies. Mm-hmm. And so when I start thinking about high standards, those three things kind of popped in my mind. Another standard out there is, how do we deal with the public? And you can do everything that you possibly can do to be responsive to the public, and when you work with the public, you understand that you don't want things not to be positive, but sometimes they will be. But the idea of returning phone calls and emails in a timely manner, that is stressed with our principals, and that is the expectation. And we work hard with that. Our standards around the inclement weather. We have a video. We've had a video out there for 2 years, making sure the public knew what we were going through on those days with inclement weather. So that's where I think when I think about high standards.
Okay. As I look through these list of values, I see the connection that they all seem to have with one another. The next one on the list, fiscal accountability. As we talk about standards, that seems like to be a nice segue into financial accountability. So what does that look like in our school district?
Well, Tim, I've said this to people before, and I believe this. I'm an educator by training. All throughout, I went to school to be a teacher. Went back to school to be an administrator, wound up being an assistant principal and a principal, and now here I am getting to do this. And I just appreciate everybody along the way that's helped me learn along the way and give me this opportunity, including this school board. But when it's all over, fiscal accountability is huge. This state has been through a lot of things and a lot of issues in the last, I'd say, going on in the 7 to 8 year window here now, probably starting in the summer of '09. Been through a lot of change financially, and a lot having to do with some of the recession issues, but some other issues have popped up. And when it's all over with my career, I hope that whether somebody says it or that's how they feel, I want to be able to be the feeling is there was an educator who also was a businessman. He took running the business of the school system very serious. Fiscal accountability is huge. If we get resources that are supposed to be spent on kids, they need to be spent on kids. And we need to be monitoring what we're using them for. And I've mentioned this in several of our videos. There is one of my favorite days every year is that January meeting with the county commissioners. I love that meeting because what I greatly appreciate is they come in the door and they let us talk to them. And what's even more important to me is there's an expectation that we have to be able to justify why we're asking for things. And I think that's our responsibility, is we have to be able to justify it. You just don't ask. You got to be in a position to be able to answer why. Whether they can fulfill the request or not, you're wrong in the public sector to ask and not be ready to explain why you would ask that. So when I think about fiscal accountability, that's kind of where it starts and ends with me. There's a lot in the middle. There's procedures for acquiring supplies and resources and all that. There's procedures for hiring and not overhiring, and looking at your allotments of positions, and then readjusting after the 10th day of each school year if the enrollment doesn't come in, because enrollment drives how many positions we get. That's all part of that piece. But at the end of the day, there's no substitute for doing things right. And, the fiscal accountability piece is really, you've got your plan, justify why you have your plan, and make sure when you're working with people that you can share that reasoning.
All right, so we've got trust and transparency, visibility, high standards, fiscal accountability, and we wrap it up with a fifth value. And boy, if a school district doesn't get this one right, you're really missing the mark. And really, you can do the other four well, but relationships. So I know that matters a great deal to you, so just talk about what that means to you and to the school system.
Well, and relationships have been big to me, and it's funny, I was talking with somebody yesterday, and relationships are paramount. You can be the best at what you do, whether you're the best principal, best teacher, but somewhere along the line, you've got to be careful enough to say, I've got to have that relationship with people so I can share my knowledge with them and I get their feedback back, or I get their, like the teacher. The teacher's got to have that relationship with the children. If they can get the child comfortable around them, the child's going to learn. If they don't ever if the child's not comfortable, then we might have a barrier there. But relationships in my role and the principal's role and all, it goes from relationships with the teachers, relationships with the adults in the community, the parents. I've mentioned the commissioners, the legislators. I value that. I told somebody this morning, I was between schools. I was on the phone with a person in the community that leads a department in the community and the government side of things, and I said, I never in my wildest dreams, 2.5 years ago, I just didn't see this getting a chance to be able to interact like we do with our commissioners and with our legislators. It's really exciting to me. Our board is great, but having those other two groups there right with us is just exciting to me. And board members, we've worked really hard to be very open. They call me, I call them. I try to email them before I call them, or get them, because I don't want to go on their personal time as much, but they're always there if you need them, and they're always willing to talk, and that's what I found our commissioners, our legislators to be, and found our principals the same way, and we have to be here for our principals and our staff. So I've had a lot of fun. I've had, throughout the 2.5 years, I can't name any group that somebody hasn't come and visited me, whether it be a parent group or a teacher or whatever, and I just think that's paramount. The doors are open, and the best way we're going to help kids is to have those positive relationships and be willing to keep cultivating them over time.
Well, Dr. Gainey, everything that we've talked about here today, as you know, you're going to be talking about in some depth when the advanced accreditation team does come here in the middle of March. And I know we've talked about this in some previous interviews, but it is a big deal, the accreditation process. So could you just sort of remind our community about what that is and when it's going to be taking place and why we do this?
Well, the accreditation visit will really start on the 13th of March. An external team will be coming in, and it's a team of professional educators, and I've seen the list now, and some are from out of state. I know there's a couple on the team that are from in-state. They're going to come in on Sunday, March 13th. There'll be some different interview processes run here. On the 14th, they're going to be visiting some schools, 15th and 16th. And it'll end on the 16th with a presentation to the Board of Education on March 16th. And Tim, if you recall, that's why the board meeting was moved. The original date for the board meeting in March was March 14th. We moved it to a Wednesday night so we could make it coincide, not have to have an extra meeting. Accreditation is huge. And what people get lost in accreditation, your school system goes through it every 5 years. And there's different accrediting groups. We work with Advanced Ed. But it really is just like everything else in the school system. It's all about the kids. Everything in a school system starts with the kids. You hire teachers to teach kids. You hire principals to work with teachers, which ultimately helps kids. Principals work with kids. And so when you're going through accreditation, you need to remember that you're really looking at the future of kids, because you want them to come out of a school system when they're looking at whether they go into the workforce, they go into further study at the collegiate university level. You want them to come out with a diploma from a school system that is accredited, meaning it's met certain standards, educational standards. So it's been a big time for us. But I think sometimes people get lost that the ultimate value for accreditation, in my opinion, is that it continues to allow us to send students out into the next step of life after high school graduation from a school system that met national standards for education.
Well, the preparation that's being done for the Advanced Ed visit, we've talked at length about, but that's certainly not the only thing that's going on in our school system. So to close out this interview, how about if I just turn it over to you and let you just talk about some things that are clicking right now. We had some weather issues here in these past few days that we seem to have gotten through pretty well. But either that or anything else that's on your mind. We had a recent board meeting as well with several things that were discussed. So what's on your mind there?
Well, the weather, obviously, I'm glad today it's sunny, and I just want to say I would say to the community and to the teachers and everybody, wow. I mean, they've handled weather tremendous. I understand the early morning phone call is not, it's not what anybody wants to be woken up at. We make that phone call at 5:15 in the morning if we're doing something different on the morning, if it's a delay or cancellation. But I really have to say great job to our staff in this school system, because I feel like we're on the same page. All of us, they understand we want to have school just like everybody does. But we're not going to jeopardize their safety. We have email with options that go out to the employees on inclement weather to protect their safety. The board is walking step in step with us. We can't control the weather, but just great job by everybody. Marty Trotter, Derek Clark, transportation staff, leadership team members are working when we make decisions to notify different media outlets. You're working with the web page, Twitter account, and the Facebook account. It's a great collective effort, and the beauty of it is everybody seems to have that same focus on safety. And there's a trust issue. We got to keep working on it, and I hope staff and parents and community members know that safety is the number one thing, and if somebody doesn't feel that way, we've got to keep working to earn that trust from them. So the weather is come and gone. It's February 17th. I'm hoping that we've made it through the winter. I don't know, but it feels good outside and it's sunny. And another exciting thing with the board meeting the other night, our board, we met and just some various business items. The audit was presented. Todd Lowe and his division has done a great job again, and that's a collective effort because obviously he's dealing with a lot of things. Principals they deal with financial resources, so do central office staff. So it's really a collective effort, but great job by Todd and his team. One other thing we had at the board meeting the other night right at the end was we presented a contract to the Board of Education. It was a contract where we're engaging with the New Schools Project. And we've already had some relationship with them because they were involved in the development of our early college high school. And we're going to engage with them again. And it's going to be involving Southeastern Randolph Middle School. We're very excited. This relationship is going to lead to a pretty intense professional development package that's going to be used at that school over the next few months. Between now and actually June 30th, and we're working on some things with that school and what the future of that school looks like, and I'm just excited about the opportunities for staff. I've got a great staff out there, and just want to get out and see if we can do some things differently. That package of professional development is going to look at academic rigor, and it's also going to have a focus on relationships in a school. As we're talking about the interactions of staff and students and trying to meet the needs of everybody. One thing I said to the board the other night was I did challenge a group that I've been working with as we've looked at Southeastern Randolph Middle School. I did challenge them to say, let's do something for Southeast Randolph Middle School that no other school in the Randolph County School System has. And this is step one of that. And I don't know where things come in the future, but we're going to keep getting better on that campus. I'm excited about what this project might lead to possibly for other middle schools down the road in our school system. But very excited about that. Very kudos to the board. We had a great discussion, and the board, like I say, it goes back to that relationship thing with the board. We work hard to try to keep them abreast of where we are with things, and just excited about the reaction we had the other night from that, and we're going to see what happens there. So those were the big things Monday night. We wound up, I thought the weather had passed Monday night. We had another little hiccup with the weather for early Tuesday morning, but like I say, the sun's out now, and it feels like it's 80 degrees even though it's only 50, because when the sun comes out and it's not snowing in February, we start feeling like spring's here. So other than that, Tim, it's been a great run here since the holiday break, and just appreciate everything the school staffs are doing and the central office staff.
Okay. All right, exciting things happening at Southeastern Randolph Middle and at all of our schools. Again, we are excited about the visit coming up in mid-March with the Advanced Ed Accreditation team. A tremendous amount of work has gone into preparing for that, but these are exciting times. Dr. Gainey, thank you again, as you do each month, for taking time to share with us, provide your feedback. We always do appreciate that. And thank you again to Randolph Communications for giving us this opportunity. We look forward to seeing you again in March. Thank you.